Hello and welcome. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Lena.
And this is
Pass Me the Booze, a paranormal podcast where we discuss the history and hauntings of local and not so local places while partaking in adult beverages.
In each episode, we share a different haunted place and pair it with a drink.
This week...
Alright. So there's this other person on TikTok, of course, called cryptidhunter.official, who is native. He tells of his encounters of skinwalkers on his property and what he experienced growing up. So, he tells the story about his grandfather and a man who used to live one town over from him. The man mostly kept to himself, but he was known to have done certain favors for people, which included putting curses on others.
I don't like that.
Sounds familiar. And the townspeople knew when someone had gone to see him because the local dogs would howl all night long, and generally the animals in the town would just act very strangely. So when the man finally passed away, again all the dogs began to howl at his wake along with the other animals in the town just acting up. It apparently got so bad that, a few of the townspeople got spooked and left the wake. The few that stayed said a huge black dog ran into the space where they were having the wake and sat right next to the casket. And the dog was growling at anyone who dared to approach. So everyone left, just freaked out by this dog. And the next morning, when they went to bury his body, they noticed that the casket was particularly light. So people started to freak out a bit, saying that the devil took him or the man was the dog that they saw yesterday. And as it turns out, this man was a Nahual, which is basically a Mexican version of a skinwalker. They're compared to the Navajo skinwalker, except they are said to be far more evil.
How are they far more evil? Dare I ask that question?
I think because of the magic, the kind of magic that they use. It's a lot more powerful and dark.
So I guess my big question is did they actually open the casket to see that the body was missing? Or was it just like, it's light?
We'll get there. But a quick fun fact. There's also an Irish version of a skinwalker called a puka.
We stand the Irish over here, so...
Yes, they're not exactly the same, but there are definitely some connections, which I found pretty interesting.
That is interesting.
That there's like a similar cryptid going on in different kinds of groups here.
On like from an anthropological stance here and like the historical stance, there are lores and there are legends that cross cultures and cross oceans. Like this being one of them. Another big one is in a lot of different beliefs and cultures, there's the, story of the big flood.
Yeah. And the same with the pyramids.
And the pyramids,
there are the pyramids in Egypt and then the ones in Mexico, but that's a whole other discussion.
I mean, those are aliens, clearly, but...
So, before the townspeople put him in the ground, somebody wanted to confirm that the body was still in the casket.
Yeah.
I would too.
I would be like, yo, it's light. Let's go. Lift the fucking lid.
This feels different. But when they opened the casket, it was empty.
See, again, because I have a lack of faith in humanity, and I was an asshole teenager, I'd steal the body.
Well, let's think about this from their perspective. They're a clearly superstitious group of people.
But see, and that right there is why I would steal the body. Because the way I'm thinking of it is like, okay, my mom is a very superstitious woman.
Yes.
Now, I want to fuck with her. the one way to do it in this culture is to be like, yo, sitting there, smoking whatever, drinking whatever. You know what I want to do right now? To get back at all these motherfuckers who told me that I missed curfew. I want to steal the fucking body.
That would take a team, for sure.
Yeah, and that's why I'm sitting here talking to my group of other hooligans. Oh, okay. I don't like that. Continue.
Um, but this person also posted a video in the past of a mysterious figure standing in an open field, measuring about 6 feet tall, standing perfectly still. When he eventually got to the spot, the figure where the figure had been standing, he found a very old, torn up T-shirt stuffed into a nearby tree, and he theorized this could have belonged to a lost hiker, as people often went missing in that area. So just a skinny boy standing out in the field, just like, hey, this is where I left him.
So, like, to that point, though, when I was in Wyoming, I visited a dude ranch. And
Dude
a
ranch.
dude ranch. It was pretty much, we rode horses through the Tetons, and it was gorgeous. But during one of our rides, we were on one ridge,
Mm-hmm.
and on the mountain across from the valley from us, we could see a pack of wolves.
Ew.
No, it was gorgeous. And like the guide was like experienced. He's like, yeah, they're not gonna fuck with us unless we fuck with them. But y'all don't. You want to try and get closer? So we were all like, yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
So our stupid asses decided to go down the mountain through the valley and try and get up to where the wolves are. But clearly they fucking moved on while we were trying to make that trek on horseback.
Yeah.
But around that area, we found like people's belongings.
Ew.
Like we found binoculars that were clearly being used as like a chew toy. We found like a bag that was clearly again being used as a chew toy. We found pieces of clothing that were torn and like clearly
Oh
being chewed on.
no.
Like
Oh
but
no.
there was no like evidence of blood or anything like that. It was just clearly that an animal had found someone's belongings and were playing with them. Because what are wolves but really big puppies?
Sure.
My thing with that is that there like the where we were when we did this was so off the track of where like typically hikers or other riders would go.
Yeah.
And like again, we had a very experienced guide with us. We had very experienced horses that all of us were on.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was off the beaten track. That's the only reason we found this shit. That being said, I could clearly see that if like a hiker lost a shirt or like left a bag somewhere, and animal be like, "This is now mine. I'm gonna bring it to my tree where my babies are. It's gonna be a really cool nest."
So I have a couple things on Skinwalker Ranch.
Share with me because a lot of I already told you. Unfortunately, poor old Robert Bigelow bought that place trying to like catch things on camera and then ended up selling it a year later because he lost so much money trying to find things and could not prove anything.
Well, he was also a billionaire, so I don't feel too bad for him.
I don't either. But at the same time, I feel a little bad. Like, you put all this effort out, and not a lot came from it.
There might be some secrets.
Ooh, what are the secrets?
Conspiracies. So, what I have for you today.
Yes.
So first, I'll share what I found about what the Shermans encountered.
Yes.
So once a cow was found with a hole cut in the center of its left eye with no other injuries and no blood. Another had its rectum cut out, and one day 7 of the cows disappeared. The owner at the time, Terry Sherman, had this to say about the disappearance. If it's snow, it's hard for a 1,200 or 1,400 pound animal to just walk off without leaving tracks, or to stop and walk backward completely and never miss their tracks. So my thought is that these animals disappeared during a snowstorm and there was no tracks.
I mean, from what I gathered, a lot of this happens in the winter or like there's just a lot of snow.
Mm-hmm.
Because even the one humanoid in the tree watching the scientist's story, it's like when I looked at the tracks in the snow, it was
Yeah, this weird shape, like a pterodactyl.
yeah. But like, do I fully believe this is where it gets like silly? Yeah, I fully believe that like something weird's happening there. Do I think it's a skinwalker?
Well, like I said in the beginning, some people believe that the Skinwalker is actually a curse rather than like a physical entity. And they can inflict curses on land and people, so maybe this is like a symptom of that.
Maybe. I'm see and here's where I think it's just a matter of like beliefs. I'm more inclined to believe that this is aliens.
Yes. So
Like,
this is where it gets a little weird. Uh cuz yeah, a lot of the sightings on Skinwalker Ranch are UFO sightings
mhm.
and abductions and the cow thing, which is a big alien trope.
Yes. And like the crop
Um
circles and all that stuff. Like all of
yes.
that is very alien.
Yes.
Yeah.
So uh, I found a little snippet that says the thing that made him eventually sell the property was that he kept hearing voices. He heard what sounded like voices being carried by the wind in a language he didn't understand, but he says sounded like they were invoking something. And that to me sounds like a curse.
That sounds like that sounds like a curse. I will fully admit. Like yeah, I don't
Mm-hmm.
mm, yeah,
Yes.
that one makes me pause and go, "Huh. What could
Ew.
this be?"
Huh.
Hmm.
And so, as you said, when Robert Bigelow purchased the property, he set up surveillance everywhere. And then apparently, I found that the results, like the findings that he found, were super duper low key, which is why there probably isn't much out there. But there was a New York Times article released in 2017 that revealed that Bigelow was working with the Pentagon investigating UFO sightings.
Wait, what?
But there's nothing else. There's
Wait,
nothing.
no, because it, Bigelow only like based off the historical record that I was able to find, Bigelow only owned Skinwalker Ranch from 96 to 97.
Very short amount of time.
Like a year.
Yeah.
I think maybe a little over a year. And in that time, he legitimately does say like I haven't been able to prove anything and that's why I'm selling.
So he says.
So he says.
Well,
So but the one encounter, hold on, let me
yes, yes,
what?
tell
The
me.
one encounter is from the biochemist who's working for Bigelow's National Institute for Discovery Science.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
I did not do a lot of research on what the fuck that was. Cause like I feel like certain
Good
things
to
when you
know.
like type them in Google, you just like get put on watch lists. And I
You
feel
gotta
like
go
that's one of those
incognito
things.
for that one.
Hmm?
You gotta go incognito for that one.
Yeah. Like that's one of those things that even cognito mode like does not like protect you from. That's like it's like when you purchase My Comf. You get put on a list.
I would hope so. Jesus.
No, but you
You're not getting away with that one.
well, if you buy certain books, you get put on like a watch list. And My Comf is like one of them, and it is
Well,
technically like the most troubling one on there, but also like
that's an outlier.
the Marxist books on like Marxism. It was a few years ago. I think at this point it's got to be like 8 years ago. And there was a book about 9/11, like the war with Afghanistan, that a soldier apparently had written, and my mom wanted to buy it.
Oh boy.
And she went to like, the North Coventry Mall, the
How could I
like bookstore
forget?
in there. She went in and she tried to buy the book with cash, and like the cashier would not do the transaction until she told her name.
Interesting.
So my mom ended up being like, fuck this, and didn't buy the
I'm
book.
out.
But like she came
That's
home and was
sketchy.
like, this person wouldn't give me the book because I was paying in cash and they kept asking what my name was. I'm like, that's weird. And she's like, it's because it's on a watch list. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
So do I believe that happened? Yes. Do I think it's because of government watch list? No. I think it's more of along the lines of the person wanted to sign you up for something.
They do. They do. I don't think the person working at the Coventry Mall bookstore works for the government or the NSA or
You
anything
never
in
know.
between.
You never know.
You never know, but I doubt it. But have you seen this show? Have you seen this show? Have you heard this? Have you heard about this? Um, there is actually a show on the Travel Channel. No, History Channel. History Channel. It's called The Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch. They made a show out of it.
So I think I like watched an episode
Mm-hmm.
like where they're trying to like do something with UFOs.
Yes.
And like they do, if I remember correctly, they like catch a UFO on video
Mm-hmm.
where it's similar to the story about the Udis lights that go to water and then come out and drag you in. Like it's a little orb or it's little orbs that float in the air
Yeah.
and then they like
Lights in
zoom
the
off.
sky. And
Yeah.
there are even a couple cows that they find dead eventually. Um, yes.
I
So
mean,
that was after the land was purchased by Brandon Fugel, who also set up surveillance 24/7, and all the workers there say they're completely transparent about it. They say that paranormal events happen regularly, including the voices uh,
yeah,
that
but have they
Sherman
like
had reported.
recorded it?
Yeah, I mean, like I did watch the first season of the show, and they did catch a few things,
So like
including
you
UFOs.
heard the voices on the wind.
I saw the UFOs that they caught. I saw the weird lights, and then there was one instance. So there was one incident that happened with one of the crew members. He got sent to the hospital for like these weird injuries and like a weird medical anomaly that the doctors still don't know what it is. Um,
So if I remember correctly, I was watching this and like on the ranch they did find this weird hole in the ground
mhm.
that like was radioactive.
Yeah. And then they measured it again and it wasn't radioactive anymore.
I didn't see that part.
Yeah, so like they found the hole that had like a bunch of radiation in it, and then
Yeah.
when they went back it was gone.
See, I didn't watch that part, but I do know like I watched the episode where it was like or part of the episode where they're like, "Yeah, we just found this hole in the ground and it's full of like liquid and when we like test it, it like sets this thing off for radiation.
Yep.
So, we're not going to fuck with it anymore. We're going to put the lid back on. We're going to all
We're
walk
just
away."
gonna put that back.
And I do know that like the one guy in that part of the episode I watched did go to the hospital with symptoms of radiation poisoning.
Yes. Yes, and that I think was a different guy because there was another guy before the series started. something was happening where there was like um, a lump on the back of his head, and basically his skin completely separated from his skull, and no one knows why. He was working on the ranch, and like apparently a big rule on the ranch is you don't dig because bad things happen. And after he started digging, this happened to him, and he was in the hospital for like, I don't know, 3 weeks, and they had no idea what was happening.
See, but to me, that sounds like that has to be something to do with radioactive materials.
Yeah, probably.
You dug
It's
up
probably
something.
something, but why is there radiation there? We still don't know why there's huge amounts of radiation there and why they're moving.
I mean,
And so,
that's a good point. That right there is the good question, but
right.
I think it's safe to say that what happened to that person is because of radiation.
Yes, I would agree with that. And so they have been studying that and why that's happening. And so I have a last point here on that. It says on the ranch, they continually have scientists studying the infrasonic and seismic measurements recorded at the ranch, along with radio frequency and radiation anomalies that have been detected. There are multiple theories as to what might be causing the strange events happening here. Some include focused energy sources, either above or below the ground, a portal or some kind of interdimensional phenomenon, a technology of unknown origin, or even the idea of a sentient, precognitive, non human intelligence. Aliens, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the long story short, if Bigelow was working with the government at one point to study UFOs,
Mm-hmm.
I'm inclined to believe that some sort of experiment was happening at that location that
Mm-hmm.
used radiation.
Oh, I'm
And
sure.
that's what's happening. Like that's it. That's
And
right there is what it is you have something happening that resulted in radiation sinking into the earth. And when you dig that up, you have the negative impacts of a human being interacting with radiation.
I'm also curious about this portal theory. I gotta watch the series with you again because it's
We'll do like a
interesting what they
binge,
find.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it definitely has like a reality TV vibe to it, but
Yeah.
it definitely sucks you in, and like they're real scientists like working on this ranch, so
Well, and that's like
it
why we
was
were
fun to
like,
watch.
ooh.
Yes. Okay, so lastly, um I have some bedtime stories for everyone.
Oh, I like bedtime stories.
I have some bedtime stories for you. I found them on cultnation.com. They are personal encounters with the skinny boys. I like me a skinny boy.
I've had some personal encounter with skinny boys.
I've had some encounters with skinny boys and I would not recommend it.
I really wouldn't either.
Lena, do you know what I love?
A shot of Annie Get Your Gun with a chaser of ginger ale?
I mean, yeah, but I also love not leaving my house.
Dude, same. I love my bed and my blankets, and they have accepted me as one of their own, and if I leave now, they will never trust me again.
Don't compromise that relationship.
I can't.
But
especially right now.
Yes, especially during a pandemic. Don't leave your house. And the last thing I want to do is go out to the grocery store when I could just have everything I need delivered to my house.
Is that why you Instacart?
That is exactly why I Instacart. They can deliver fresh groceries straight to my door, sometimes in as little as 1 hour. Or I can schedule the delivery if I'm not going to be around.
Instacart now also has multiple options based on your needs, from pet stores to your local pharmacy, and our personal favorite, even alcohol.
Hell yeah.
And
They even have a section for people who use food stamps, so you can find exactly what you need all in one place.
So follow the link in our show notes to go to instacart.com to get free delivery on your first order of $10 or more.
Instacart. Never take a step in a grocery store ever the again.
Hey, Lauren. Hey, Lena.
How do we do this?
Do it.
Make our podcast.
Oh, we use Buzzsprout. Do you want to know one of the best things about it?
What?
You can start a show for free.
That's my favorite four-letter F word.
Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in all the major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever else you get your podcasts.
Buzzsprout wants their podcasters to succeed. So, in addition to distributing your podcast for you, you'll get a great looking podcast website, detailed analytics, promotional tools, and they'll even help you pick out the right equipment for you, and that's just scratching the surface.
So follow the link in our show notes to let Buzzsprout know we sent you and get a great deal on every subscription level. If you sign up for a paid plan, this also gets you a $20 Amazon gift card that you could put towards, I don't know, a new microphone for your podcast.
Oh, that's a low blow. And of course, this helps support our show. So follow the link in our show notes to go to buzzsprout.com and join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world.
Buzzsprout, the easiest way to start a podcast.
Are you ready for your bedtime stories?
I'm ready for my bedtime story.
Okay. This first one is called It Had a Dog's Body, but with Human Hands and Feet.
I don't like the description of that.
All right, everyone. I hope you have your blankies ready.
Where's my Mongol blankie?
Story number 1. I was spending a month with my cousins at my grandma's house. It was August, and my cousins' ages ranged from 10 to 15, and I was the oldest. I was staying with a 10, 13, and 14-year-old. We stayed up telling scary stories often, but one night, a few weeks in, we decided to make a campfire out back.
Nope.
Mistake number 1. My grandma's house is in a rural suburb. The neighbors aren't too far when you're driving down the road to her house, but in the backyard, it's thick forest with man-made paths through it. Sounds like my mom's house.
It does sound like your mom's house.
Oh boy. Each house is on a hill, so only part of the basement was actually underground. This isn't important until later, though. So we're towards the east side of her yard. What?
So this sounds like your mom's house.
It does sound like my mom's house. All right, so just picture my mom's house when I'm telling this story.
I got this. We camped in this yard.
This makes this, like, so much scarier.
A little bit. Just imagine SpongeBob theme around it.
Yeah, that makes it a little bit better, a little less scary.
Yeah.
So we're towards the east side of her yard in a small-ish patch of open land. You couldn't see the neighboring yards from there, and there was probably 3/4 of a mile to each side of us that belonged to my grandma. It was maybe 11 at night, and we were playing Truth or Dare after telling scary stories, and my 14-year-old cousin dared me, the 13-year-old, to go walk through the paths for 10 minutes or so. I said yes right away, as I wasn't easily scared and rather level-headed. But my younger cousin was a bit more hesitant. That's a smart cousin.
Yeah, like that's the person who survives the fucking horror story.
We didn't bring a flashlight because it wasn't pitch dark yet, and we couldn't see enough to not die. And we could see enough to not die. Jesus.
Lord have mercy. All right.
We were walking through the paths for about 5 minutes and can barely see the fire through the trees when we decided to turn. In the middle of the path was a large, dog-like creature hunched over with its front hands an inch from the ground. What I remember most was how its eyes were so fucking bright white, and it was humanoid dog-shaped, with a human-like head, but a dog-like body, but human hands and feet. It looked right at us, and I know I was paralyzed with fear as it dashed away. the opposite way from us, towards a creek that ran through the yard. Eventually, my cousins and I screamed bloody effing murder, and the other cousins and my grandma ran to us. I don't remember much here because I was really disoriented. Yeah, and I couldn't think properly, but I did wake up in bed, so I assumed that I was brought up to the house. All the kids slept in the basement in a big room with the sliding glass doors to the outside, as the room was on the side that wasn't underground. My bed was pressed against a big glass window, and I could see my cousins playing outside down below. The house is in Michigan, so it gets slightly chilly even in the end of August, and there was a slight breeze, so I put on a jacket and ran to join them outside, skipping breakfast, not wanting to miss out on anything fun. When I got down, I could tell they weren't playing, but rather running to get my grandma. I just want to put a quick warning right here. If you are not a fan of animal abuse or animal death, skip ahead really quick. I'm just going to go through this really quick. All right, skip now. Her dogs, both of them, were dead, ripped up. All right, the end. That night, we went to bed early. I woke up at maybe 2 in the morning because I felt something hit my head. My cousins were all sitting on the bed opposite me on the other side of the room. There was one bunk bed and 2 double bunk beds. The double beds for me and my 14-year-old cousin. They were being quiet and staring at me. The 13-year-old nodded his head towards the window. I froze. They all looked afraid. I turned my head slightly to the side and saw a really messed up looking face pressed to the window, with gaping eyes looking down at me. I screamed so fucking loud and it bolted. My grandma called the police after I told her what happened, and they found nothing. I went home after that, and I have never been there during the night again. No thanks.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Sounds like like we've been discussing, it took the dog's form to disguise itself and creep on these kids.
All right. Is that my only bedtime story, or do you have another?
I have 2 more.
Haha.
So, this one is called The Grove. This didn't happen to me, but a very close friend of mine. I've heard a lot about coyotes and skinwalkers, and had a weird experience or two with coyotes. But never anything paranormal, so to speak. Patrick's story, however, kept me from going back to a favorite backcountry secret stash. Wonder what that secret stash was. Weed. For those who can't see.
No. It's only for the people who decide to watch on YouTube.
So, he was leaving the area one morning and had been camping there a couple days, and said there was a coyote that always seemed to be close by, like in his peripheral vision, but never overt. He loaded up his truck and started to drive down the washout. I feel like that was supposed to be something else and it auto-corrected.
What does it say?
It says washout. He drove down the washout. I don't know.
All right.
He drove down the road to the fire road, and at the end of the wash, okay, there it is again. Maybe I'm just missing something. He could see the coyote following him. When he pulled onto the road, it was running next to him. Now he was freaked out, so he sped up. He was going 35 or so, and it was running along beside him. Definitely not possible. When he looked back, the coyote was running on 2 legs and wearing what Patrick said looked like buckskin pants. An instant later, it was a person wearing a coyote fur, keeping pace with his truck. When he looked again, it was gone. He never went back to the grove after that. And that sounds like a skinwalker. The pelt, the running along the car. Ew.
That sounds like what we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
See, but to me, it's not the thing that changes from like, and here we've talked a lot about my logical mind tonight. The part of the story where it switches for me is when he's in the car and the coyote is chasing the car.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know about you, but like actually you might know this. Like, because when I lived out by St. Pete's, which is kind of where your mom is,
Mm-hmm.
there were shit tons of coyote.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in high school once, because I was cyber schooled,
Yes.
one of my field trips was to go to one of the hunting grounds that was right at like in the French Creek area,
Mm-hmm.
to stargaze.
Yeah.
And
That sounds
our
nice.
it was very nice, but our guide was telling us how he always has emergency lights with him because in this area coyote will surround you, and if you are
Mm-hmm.
alone a pack of coyote will attack you.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you only catch like 1 to 5 coyote, but you have lights and you're able to like keep a light on them and like keep shining lights around you as you move away from where you are into your
Yes.
like vehicle, they'll follow you until you're in the vehicle and moving away.
Ew.
So knowing that and
Okay.
having experienced also like being in a dark field, seeing a pair of eyes, and like knowing that story and remembering that story and moving through the field while also being able to train a light on the glowing fucking eyes following me,
Yeah.
that part of the story checks. That to me, that checks. Like that's coyote behavior. The weird part of that is the following the car.
On
That's what
2
I'm like,
legs.
that's not normal.
No. That's
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah, I don't like that.
On 2 legs.
And wearing a coyote skin. Like I don't
No thank you.
I don't like that.
Huh.
I'm
Glad you got
smiling
in your
right now,
truck,
but it's
friend.
yeah, I'm smiling, but it's only because I'm awkward and I don't like that.
Nervous.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So one more story for you. It's a little bit of a longer one, so here we go.
All right.
It's called It Was Like It Knew We Knew What It Really Was.
Oh, I don't like that title. Sorry, that's never a good way to start off the story.
No. Because they don't have to hide. That means they don't have to hide.
Yeah.
So, I decided to join my bestie Karen for a 3-day stay at her grandmother's place on the res. Her grandmother lives near a place called Tuba City, Arizona, in the middle of nowhere but surrounded by rural homes. We go to college together, and I was kind of interested to know about Navajo tradition. The first day we stayed, it was pretty chill, nothing out of the ordinary, but when her grandma said that a stray dog came out of nowhere and wouldn't leave. Yeah. To me, it did act kind of strange, and it was ugly looking. That's rude. Black, shaggy coat, looked like a mix between a German Shepherd and a Lab.
But those are
That I know every puppy to me is cute, so I'm a little
Sorry.
biased.
I digress.
That night we were watching a movie in the living room. The living room has big windows. They look out to the front where the cars were parked. Nothing fancy, they say. With the curtains wide open. Grandma was in the kitchen cooking dinner, and we were watching a movie. Next to the window is a medium bookshelf where the DVDs were kept. Karen went to put back a DVD we had just watched, but freaked out because that stray black dog was staring at us through the window, standing on top of the wood box outside. Not something normal dogs do from my point of view or hers. Usually my dog, which is a house dog, scratches the door to be let in. Res dogs aren't house dogs, and dogs inside houses are frowned upon in Navajo tradition. because they're meant to protect the house and owner.
Mm-hmm.
The other dogs seemed to stay away from it. Karen opened the door and yelled at it to get off the box, and it ran off behind the shed. She's brave. Karen's brave.
Yeah. Holy shit.
So we went to Tuba City to get some groceries and came back to the house. The dog was nowhere to be seen, nothing unusual. Grandma went to visit some people, so it was just Karen and I. About 5 o'clock, we heard something trying to open the door. Both of us looked out since there had been no car heard and no dogs barking. Looking out the living room window to the door, and there was the dog trying to open the door with its paws. 2 paws wrapped around the brass doorknob, standing on its hind legs. I thought that was weird, but wasn't really freaked out. Karen was. She opened the door and chased it off. Again, Karen is so brave.
I'm sorry, but Karen's like the MVP of this story.
Shout out to Karen in this instance only.
Yeah, only this instance. This is the only good Karen I've ever come across. Continue.
So Grandma came back later and Karen told her. Grandma didn't like what she heard.
Clearly.
So they went to sleep. We slept in the spare bedroom since it had 2 beds, one window with curtains open a little. We turned off the light, but there was a sound coming from on top of the roof. Pitter-patter footsteps and scratching sounds and panting. It then sounded like it jumped off onto the large plastic water barrel they had. At first, we heard what sounded like barking, but as it grew louder, the other dogs seemed to be barking at something also. And all of a sudden, something was running around the house barking, and it was no dog. Nope, it wasn't. This barking sounded human, a deep male voice barking like we knew it wasn't a dog. Here's my dog impression that's now quoted. Woof, 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 ruff, ruff, arf, arf, arf. I'm just reading what's here.
I appreciate you so much right now.
I do this for you.
You just made this story come to life.
That's my dog impression, everyone.
That's what Thor says.
Woof.
Woof.
Just exactly like that, adding the W's, R's, and A's. Then panting again by the window, and we started freaking out. Karen decided to, in my opinion was stupid, open the curtains to look out. There was the stray dog on its hind legs looking into the bedroom, but this time it stunk, and what I thought were 2 black holes in the neck. Another pair of eyes twinkled. Think of those ugly, glossy spider eyes staring at you. Ew.
Ew.
And the paws were deformed looking, hands with overgrown, somewhat thick and sharp fingernails. Again, both screaming and shutting the curtains closed. Grandma came running through the door and seeing it, first thing she did was grab ashes from the fireplace, load 3 shells into the shotgun from under her bed, go Grandma, bless herself in Navajo, and went outside to shoot it, yelling in Navajo about how the thing wasn't welcome there and to get the hell out of there for it to go linger somewhere else.
Yo, can we just pause and talk about, like, the strong female characters in this story?
Shout out to Grandma. She was ready for this shit. She said from the very beginning, there's this fucking weird dog. I have a shotgun under my bed. I'm ready.
His grandma with the shotgun, Karen running out the house yelling at this thing multiple times. Like, they strong females. Love to see it. Okay.
See, that's what I'm saying. They're prepared for this kind of shit. They know that they're out there.
Yeah.
They said, no, not today. We have a guest.
We have a guest. She doesn't know. Fuck off.
So, them both being traditional, the next day they called the medicine man to come over and put cedar in and around the house. He prayed over everyone with cedar smoke, and an eagle feather blessed the place, made us eat bitter herbs called eagle's gall or something, she says, and gave me an arrowhead. Apparently, I needed to carry one for protection and a little pouch called corn pollen. She said it seems to work pretty well. The medicine man said that the dog was a skinwalker, which in Navajo is a long word, but I call them Yoshis. And I did find a long word, but that's something you're really not supposed to say.
Okay.
So we're not going to say it. You
Yeah,
can look it up
I
for
did
yourself.
find like the Navajo word for Skinwalker, but I had decided not because I knew it was like culturally don't say it, but
Don't
more
say it.
along the lines of like I knew I was going to butcher it.
Yeah. So we're just
So
going to leave it
I
out.
was like, not gonna embarrass myself this week like that.
So if you want to look that up, feel free. I'm not gonna say it.
There are lots of vowels and syllables.
I've already summoned them enough tonight.
We have. We
Um,
really, really have. I'm like
mhm.
looking out. I'm like, I hear people.
So
Okay.
the medicine man said that the dog was a skinwalker, the body of a stray dog. So it took the skin of a stray dog to disguise itself. And it made the illusion so we wouldn't know it wasn't a real dog. He also said that Yoshis tend to harm people by using some sort of human bone straw to spit at someone, like we mentioned before,
Mm-hmm.
to get human bones into them. Doctors can't detect it, but the medicine man that day pulled a piece of human skull out of Grandma's right shoulder, pretty big, about 2 inches long and 1 centimeter thick. It was real because we watched him pull it out of her. That was intense.
How did Grandma not know?
I think it's due to the magic.
Yeah, but
Honestly,
like, is it more of like a you get bones spit at you and like it's a tracking beacon?
that might be it too.
Or is it like a I'm gonna spit this at you and like it's a bullet?
Maybe a little bit of both. I think,
Okay.
yeah, the bone dust to like control them a bit. So
I mean, it checks because Grandma in this story kind of sounds like a badass who like would get totally shot in the shoulder and then be like, meh, it's a flesh wound, it's fine. It's
meh,
a mosquito bite.
'tis but a flesh wound. Yeah, Grandma sounds like a badass. So if there was an actual like bone, a full bone in her fucking shoulder, I wouldn't put it past her to be like, oh, it's fine.
Oh, the fly hit me. It's fine.
It's fine. I'm fine. Yeah, but that's what we have on Skinwalkers. So
So I will say, out of the 3
whew,
stories you just said, the last sounds the most believable.
that was freaky.
I don't. I like that the strong females were like, fuck this,
Mm-hmm.
throughout the
Mm-hmm.
entire thing. They were all like, no, we don't have time for this shit.
Listen, after this episode, if you need protection from the Skinwalker, you gotta find yourself some Navajo women because they are fucking badasses.
Yes, you do.
Hmm.
Though, I will say, like, some of the behaviors that were talked about with the stray dog,
Yeah.
or like the wild dog,
Mm-hmm.
um, when I was in Kentucky for my work with CAP,
Right.
with the
Yeah.
Christian Appalachian Project, like they did warn us, stay on the property, don't go out too late, or like even on property, don't stay out too late because there are wild dogs.
Yeah. I remember you mentioning that.
Yeah, and they did like I was like, oh, there's puppies. They get to pet puppies, and they're like, no, you don't.
And
They want to
knowing what
do
I
you
know
harm.
now, definitely not.
Yeah,
I
definitely
retract my
not after this
previous
story.
statement.
But
Yeah.
what I will say is that like the wild dogs in Kentucky
Mm-hmm.
acted a lot like the story describes this dog acting.
Are they standing on their hind legs and trying to open doors?
No, but like they would like stand on things that like pets wouldn't stand
Like
on, or
we normally
they
wouldn't
would.
see.
Well, and with dogs trying to open doors like that, I don't know if you know this, and you've cuddled this thing so many times. Figaro
Yes.
opens doors.
Well, she's a cat.
That's
She's
fair.
she's crafty.
She's crafty. But this bitch, she's like in the corner right here staring at me as we're talking. This bitch opens doors.
Oh.
So, do I fully believe that a dog could try?
I mean, I know dogs can open doors, but like the way that it was described, like with its two paws trying to open the brass door, like the
I mean, yeah,
doorknob,
but if it was like going like this,
trying to sandwich it between his two paws, I don't know.
because like
Like
I've
especially for a stray dog. Stray dogs don't understand what doors are.
yeah, but if it was a wild dog that watched people use the knob, do I think that that thing is capable of trying itself?
I
Yeah.
don't think that was a dog.
I mean, do I think it was a dog? No. But do I think some
Fuck
of the
no.
behaviors that they were like, it doesn't look like a dog, it's not acting like a dog? I'm like, okay, it's not acting like a domesticated animal, sure, but it's acting like other animals have acted.
Still trying to act like another
Yes.
animal, trying to
Now,
fool these people.
now, if you're telling me that this thing, one paw standing on hind legs, was going like this,
Let me in.
okay, we can talk about that because that's not normal. But like I've watched Figaro open doors, and like you know the door knobs that this you've been in my apartment, you've slept in the room
Yes.
I'm in right now. You know the doorknobs.
Mm-hmm.
Figaro has opened one of these fucking doors.
Aw, Figgy.
And it's not because like before she would only open like the ones with like the like latch type handle where like clearly all she's doing is like putting a paw on it and then applying pressure to the door. This is
Yes.
a knob. You have to turn the knob. And I've watched this cat ninja her way on the door and then
No.
using her paws go like this and then like kicking off. Like I've seen her do this shit. She's still staring at me
Oh.
like, what are you gonna do about it?
Stop telling on me.
But like, so could I see a dog trying something similar? Totally. Now, do I think that the thing that they described toward the end where it was on the roof and then staring in through the window is a dog? No.
Sounding like a guy trying to sound like a dog. Nope.
Yeah,
Nope.
that to me sounds sketchy. But
Nana, get the shotgun.
my question is how did it know that you knew it wasn't a dog?
I mean, it sounds like it had been stalking the house for a while, because as soon as they came, Grandma was like, hey, there's this weird dog around my property, and I don't trust it.
Yeah. But it was also it's one of those things too where it's like
Maybe it wasn't like a high-ranking skinwalker, so it made a few mistakes. It was just like, you
maybe
know what, the jig is up. Fuck it. You
yeah.
know what I am.
I'm just gonna be like arf.
Woof.
Woof.
Ruff.
Rough. I think there's a piece in the lore that we need to better understand. And I think that in this specific story, too, there's like something that happened that's either too taboo to even talk about
Yes,
from the
exactly.
point of someone who doesn't necessarily believe and was able to write this much.
Yes.
Or like just something there has to be this other piece of the puzzle
Mm-hmm.
to make this story make full sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because the like logic part of my brain is dog, dog. It's on the roof at the Skinwalker.
Fuck!
Like somewhere in those two instances of it was on its hind legs trying to open the door with its paws like this. To me, that's still animal behavior because I watch my cat do that shit.
Yeah, but that's your cat. That's not a stray dog.
No, but my point is that like if a wild like if not a wild animal, but like a wild dog watches someone do something consistently enough,
Mm-hmm.
it's able to mimic the behavior. Figaro is able to open a fucking door because she has watched me open the door enough.
With her tiny little
Little
paws.
pause.
I can't even picture that.
It's funny as hell. Because she's like, ninja cat, ninja cat. And then she gets to the door and she turns it. And with one of her little back legs, she kicks the door open and is like swinging on the door until it stops swinging. And then she jumps down and she's like, motherfucker, you thought you could lock me out of the bedroom. Fuck you.
You thought. Your cat's just smart. Your cat's an alien.
My cat's something.
All right, everyone. So, well, with that, I'm going to finish my wine tequila and play Animal Crossing until I pass out on the couch.
That sounds like a beautiful plan. I'm going to take my Skinwalker cat and hope she doesn't kill me tonight.
I think you'll be fine. She's a good girl.
She is. She's such a cuddle bug. She's staring at me right now because it's like 10:30 and I'm home. And she's like, motherfucker, we go to bed at 9 o'clock.
Why aren't you in bed? Let's go.
It's bedtime. What are you doing? That's what's happening right now. She's gonna start like screaming at me in a little bit if I don't come to bed.
Ma'am.
She's like, ma'am, it's bedtime. Mom.
I'm sure December feels the same way. She knows when her bedtime is.
Oh, Sim,
My old lady. Mm-hmm. All right, well, thank you for listening. Send in your fucking stories.
Help us, help you, help us.
Yeah, tell your friends.
Follow us on TikTok.
Yeah, I'll try to put some shit together this weekend.
I'm gonna come up with scripts. Now that I know we have a TikTok, this is just gonna be a thing. I'm gonna make us TikTok famous.
Anything that can fit in 3 minutes, we're good. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. Have a nice evening. We love you.
Stay spooky.
Stay spooky.